Your slogan, or at least one of your slogans in your campaign, is Fight Washington, Save America. What exactly does that mean? Because to really be effective as a U.S. Senator, don't you have to be able to work with your peers rather than fighting the system and find your way to compromise?
Well, I think actually compromise is what's gotten us into the problems we're currently in. It's been kicking the can down the road time and time again, adding trillions of debt that we can't afford. And I think what's most important to recognize is it hasn't just been the Democrats. Republicans share in the blame for getting us to this point. And I think right now we are facing a debt crisis, the 14 plus $trillion, that is now, I believe, stifling our economy. We've reached a point where debt is now over 70% of GDP, the size of our economy, on the path to 100%. And so I believe it's critically important to fight the status quo in Washington from both sides of the aisle, because that's what it's going to take to save this country.
If you were currently a senator, would you rule out all revenue enhancements as a path to compromise to resolve the debt ceiling crisis?
We need to do two things. We need to stop spending the 1.5 or $6 trillion annual deficits that we're running are piling on more and more debt, now to over 14 trillion. And we need to grow our economy. Part of growing our economy, as to your point, is that we need major tax reform. We need to have a flatter, fairer, simpler system, one in which we have lower rates on the personal and corporate side, and more importantly, eliminate the loopholes and the exemptions and the corporate favoritism that's in our tax system.
What corporate loopholes would you be willing to see disappear?
Well, I think they all need to be on the table. I think we've seen some as it relates to subsidies for ethanol, as well as some of the corporate tax breaks that the president has been talking about and other leaders have been talking about. I don't think it's government's role to be picking winners and losers in the tax system, and I think that's what's happened with our tax code.
You also want to work to repeal the federal health care legislation. If this were to happen, though, what about the tens of millions of people without health insurance? What would you propose for them?
Well, I think what's most important is to defund and repeal Obamacare, simply because it is an unsustainable entitlement, very similar to what we're seeing right now, which is driving us into the debt crisis that we currently have, and replace it by changing the system. I think it is extremely important to change our tax system so that individuals have the same tax benefits as corporations. I understand the issues of pre-existing illnesses and why that's a problem. My wife has epilepsy, and so we have struggled with this issue before. But the reality is that a bigger government program that is going to drive people off of their employer-based health insurance, like we're seeing right now, is not the solution. We need regulatory reform so people can purchase health insurance across state lines. We need more transparency so people understand the costs. And finally, I think we need more litigation reform in order to make sure that doctors are not trying to, or not performing more and more unnecessary tests that are driving up the cost of healthcare.
Do you believe that there should be no restrictions on gun ownership?
Again, I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment and of individuals' rights to bear arms. What I don't support are the types of regulations, whether they be through legislation or backdoor regulations through administrative agencies or elsewhere, that infringe upon individuals' rights to possess firearms and to possess guns.
Do you oppose the 3-day waiting period?
I do oppose those types of restrictions, and again, I think it's important to recognize that individuals have the